Okay, welcome, Caitlin.
Hi. So, just to let you know, what I won't be doing is doing a lecture on what is clean language and what is drama, mainly because I don't always know what everyone's most interested in. So I'll do like a brief overview, and then I'll be asking you some questions, because I think that the best way to understand clean language and the way that we use drama in the Agile world is against real life questions and real life examples. But I'll give you a very brief history. In terms of my background, I was just interested in how groups form rules, how they understand the unspoken rules that they have, whether they check whether the rules are updated, fit for purpose, and then how do we examine them in such a way that we can move forward in ways that really serve us to work together. So I'm not on my own. There's, I think, the Agile world. There are all sorts of people all over the world are looking for ways that we can keep our brains fully functioning, our systems fully functioning, our ability to be present to what is rather than to what should be, what we were hoping would be, but actually what's going on, what would we like to have happen, and what are the smallest steps that we can take to make that happen. So I came across a guy called David Grove in maybe 1996. And somebody had said, oh, you must go and see this guy. He's Maori, he's over from New Zealand. He's got this stuff called clean language. It's really good as a therapeutic tool. And I went to watch him and I thought, oh, that is extraordinary, because most people, when you watch them, you can work out what they think if you listen very carefully to the kinds of questions they ask. But when you watched David Grove work, the only thing you learned about was the system of the client in front of you. It was like, what's he doing? All he's doing is saying things like, and what kind of, and what happens just before, and where does that come from? And yet people were getting great understanding of their own systems and finding insights and changing what they were up to just from this handful of very, very clean questions. But because I wasn't a therapist or a coach, I was then a youth worker and an academic. I was like, can you teach this to kids? And if I teach it to kids, if I take the principles of what he's doing with an individual system and apply it to a system of individuals, if I just take the principles, what happens? So clean language, the clean of clean language just means if I ask a question, they are enabling constraints. They keep all of my ideas, presuppositions to myself. So they constrain me, but they leave the person answering completely open to do for their own mind and attention to go wherever it naturally goes. So I was like, okay, well, if I get a bunch of kids together, and you can all do this as well, I'm kind of going to ask you the questions as we go along. The children weren't going to school. They weren't getting what they wanted. And so my questions were, oh, so what's happening? Oh, I keep getting into fights. All right, what happens just before you get into fights? Well, somebody looks at me and, oh, what kind of is this when someone looks at you? What happens just before? So we asked questions like this to the kids. And what I found, let's say, we started with things like, what do you do when you're losing your temper? Because that's what the kids wanted to talk about first. When you're losing your temper, it's a bit like what? Oh, well, I go red. What kind of red? Blood red. Who's different to that? And I was very, very experimental. I was very young. I didn't know anything really about facilitating groups. But because I was applying the principles, I inadvertently found a way of working that meant I was never, ever an expert on my clients. And because I was never an expert and I had absolutely no outcome for them, because clean language doesn't allow you to have an outcome, what I found was that the kids started to become fully trusted They started to model, this is the way I do my temper, this is the way she does it, this is the way he does it, this is the differences between us. They started slowly, but surely to go, oh, that's interesting. Your temper's like this, my temper's like this. Oh, that's why you do what you do. That's why I do what I do. And they started to create models of their behavior that then allowed them to have, with greater self-awareness, they started to learn to self-regulate. They learned to understand that when they weren't regulated, where that came from, what their assumptions were, what was happening for them. So as they developed that self-awareness, they developed greater self-regulation. As they developed greater self-regulation, their minds became more agile. They weren't hijacked by their chemicals. They weren't, and if they did get hijacked by the chemicals, with a couple of clean questions that the rest of the group now could ask them, they could understand where that was coming from and de-escalate any escalation that was going on. I didn't know that was going to happen, but very quickly, instead of me having a bunch of kids who hated each other and hated me, I had a bunch of teenagers who were essentially human researchers who would go, hey, I can't make decisions easily. Who here can make decisions? Oh, let's do decision making. So we would put decision making in the middle and say, when you're making good decisions, that's like what? When somebody might say, oh, it's like, I weigh up all of the possibilities, I hold them, and then I get a feel for what's the best decision. Go, okay, who's not like that? Somebody else is like, oh no, I just throw myself off a cliff and I splash around in the water and I'm sure I can swim. You're like, okay, let's look at what are the advantages and disadvantages in the group of those two models, rather than who's right and wrong, just of these two models, what works well, what doesn't work so well. And I would have happily, I still spend about a third of my time with teenagers. I would have happily stayed there, but then some software people said, that stuff I've read about, can you do it with software? And I was like, don't think so, because that's not what I do. What have you got? Oh, we've got programmers who have a program, they're like moles in a hole, and they just like to program on their own. They don't like to talk to other people, and they hate the marketers. Got the marketers who've got all their language, and they hate the engineers. I was like, oh no, that's gangs, I can do that. So that's how I've come into your world, was we began to, and I think the software developers, their word for it then, this is back in 1998, 99, they said, oh, we see what you're doing. You're doing reverse engineering. You're uncovering our invisible architecture so that we can update our operating systems. I was like, well, that's your language, but yep, I'll take that. That's what we do. So a clean question, very, very simple. They just take whatever's been said and they accept and extend it, and they fully 100% trust that the system will update itself. It is never your job to correct the person that you're working with or the people that you're working with. So what I didn't know then, because that Agile wasn't part of my community, was, in fact, I don't even know if it was around. When did Agile start, Jamie? What's your year for that?
Oh my goodness, it's been around for more than 20 years, I believe.
Yeah, but I think it was a similar sort of time, because I hadn't been doing it that long before I started to get people saying, oh, you're doing Agile. You've just created an Agile group. It's like a Scrum group. It's like a self-organizing system. I was like, oh, well, okay. I didn't know anything about that, but that's what started to happen. But what I also then found was that was fine in my little group. My little group could all become Agile thinkers. They knew how to detect when they were in or out of drama, and they could update their systems. But when they went back into school, that behavior wasn't supported by the system that they were in. So if a teacher came in and said, oh, you need to sit still and look at me, pay attention. And if they were then to say, oh, I am paying attention. I pay attention by fidgeting at the back and looking out of the window. The teacher wouldn't enjoy that feedback. So then they might get punished for knowing their system and advocating for themselves. So it's like, oh, okay. I then had to rethink what I was doing, because, and I think lots of you Agilists will recognize this as well, is if you create change in a small area, you really need the system to create the conditions that support that to flourish. Otherwise, a small agile team in a non-agile organization the system can become allergic to them. So this is kind of where I started. I had lots of experimentation in software development. We went into taking the questions into diversity, equality and inclusion. They were very good for looking at prejudice. It's like, rather than try and correct prejudice or correct exclusion, we just go, hey, what's a prejudice that you used to have, but you lost it? And as people start to speak in the group will then ask them 1 or 2 questions, like, where did that come from? It was a bit like, what happened just before you lost it? And so again, what you had, rather than us tell a group how to become less prejudiced, they would model how they'd naturally updated their prejudice. Then they would self-organize to go, how do we create more conditions so that more of us update our prejudice naturally more of the time? And so you had a homegrown inclusion system that, because it was adjacent to what the people were already thinking about, it could stay in place longer. So that's just how it started. So if I pause for a second, at any point, if you've got questions, yeah, I think Jamie said that, throw them in, because I cut my teeth on disruptive teenagers. What I'm most used to is having to tell people stuff on the spot. So if you've got any questions or you want to know things, just throw them in as we go along. So what we're going to do today, my evening, some people's early morning, all different, some lunch times around this room, is when your mindset is at its most agile, it's like what? And then what is drama in this context? So I'm going to start with the drama, and then we're going to go into a little bit of when your mindset is at its most agile, it's like what? And we'll just look at how the one can interfere with the other, and then how you can map back and go, okay, I'm in a bit of drama. What am I going to do about it? How do I regain my agility? And then how do I get back into working with present to what is, what we'd like to have happen, and what are the smallest things that we can do about it? So let's start with drama. Drama in this context is anytime that you get into a state where you're not getting what you want, and rather than, I'm sure loads of you have great strategies for then moving out of drama, but we want to spend a few minutes first going, what are you like when you're really in drama? What are you like when you can't get out of it? And drama here is, we used Cartman's model because when I'm facilitating a group, I don't want to stay the expert. I tried to look for models over the last 20 years that were very easy for teenagers to learn quickly, then for groups that didn't necessarily want me to be there. It's like, how quickly could I get them to code drama, but without shaming yourself? So drama, we found Cartman's model was really easy. And Cartman developed the model so drama is never a wet fish to slap people with. You know, oh, you're in drama. Or, oh, look at me, I'm in drama again. That's not how you use the model. You use the model to go, I'm in a bit of drama here. What's my signal? So the first thing you have to know is, what's your signal for it? Because when we go into drama, it's usually because something in our system is being violated. It's either because we don't feel safe enough. So in this situation, I don't feel safe. So I'm in a little bit of drama. I don't feel like I belong, or I don't have the freedom to get on with my job properly. So all of those things can be true situations. You're in drama when it settles into your system and you replicate it. So, oh, it's Jamie again. Oh, they're always going to be interrupting me, and I'm never going to be able to get a word in edgeways. If you come into the relationship with drama, it starts to presuppose the kind of relationship you're going to get, and you stop being curious about what's actually happening, and what you could do to change it. So drama could be, I'm not okay. So victim, I'm not all right. When I'm in drama, I could take victim. You know, you might be able to do that. Maybe your team can do that, but not me. I'm not okay. Our team's not able to do this. Our family's not able to do this. That's victim. I'm not okay. You might have persecutor. It's not me, it's you. It's not my team, it's our manager. It's not us. If the manager was better, we'd all be better. So sometimes people mix up victim persecutor because they sound like victim, but it's actually persecutor. So a victim persecutor might be, you know, oh, I can't get a word in edgeways because you talk too much. So it might be poor me, but it's poor me because you're doing something. So these two are relatively easy to get. And rescuer, I'll come on to in a minute. Rescuer is a little bit tricky. Rescuer is kind of, I don't have power in this relationship, so I have to, or you couldn't take this feedback, so I have to. It's either you're not okay, so I have to, or I'm not okay, so I have to. So before we go any further, what I'd like you to all do is to just take a moment to think, when you go into drama, whether you're rescuing, covering something for somebody that you shouldn't be doing, helping them when really maybe they didn't invite you to help them, or you're in victim, I'm not okay, I can't do that, I do this one, I had this one with technology, I can do it with technology. I'm like, oh no, I don't do spreadsheets, I can't do spreadsheets, I can't get my head around it. Sometimes it's useful. Sometimes I play victim because I have a business partner who loves technology and loves spreadsheets. So I can go, oh, I don't quite know how this works, Marion. She'll be like, oh, well, let me sort it out for you, which might be fine if it's an agreement. But if it goes on for a long time, A, I end up disempowered, and B, she gets big, exhausted and irritated because she's babysitting my spreadsheets. Or persecutor, they're not okay. So if you just all take a moment to think, when you are at your worst in drama, you're a bit like what? And at first, I just want you to put it in the chat. So when you're in drama, when you're at your worst, you're a bit like what? I'll just give you a minute to put those in. And I'll come and I will say to, so Magda, when you're with, because Magda's victim won't be the same as Sarah's victim. So for example, so Magda, when you're in victim, it's a bit like what for you? Or Sarah, when you're in victim, it's a bit like what for you? And you'll find some of you like to go to specific, like you'll have a favorite place to go. Frank, I'm running around like a head without a chicken, running in circles. When David gets stubborn, Ritambara gets very threatening. Oh, and silent mode. So I don't know if those two things go at the same time or those are two different. Yeah.
So I feel threatened because you said, how does it feel like? And I said, it feels very threatening when there is drama.
And when you go into silent, what kind of silent?
Like to absorb the shock, because sometimes it is shocking also because you had not expected it to be like that. And then, so it's shocking to absorb the shock and then sort of process it. So it may translate to passive aggression also sometimes, but yeah, this is my way of handling it, thinking that if I stay silent and process it, then maybe I will not catalyze it more and not become the cause of it even more.
So if you just listen to that little explanation, so it's shocking, I go silent, I want to not process it, but I also don't want to, it's because I find it threatening. So that's a lovely little example of, that's a drama, that's a safety drama, and you can hear it. So one of the things I realized over the last, particularly the last year, 18 months, I started to categorize the different kinds of drama. And so some go into drama in a little bit of a fawn, you know, like if I've got one dog, if I take her out, if another dog comes close to her, she just lies down immediately. Oh, quick, here's my tummy. You know, please don't do anything aggressive. And I've got another one that goes, do you want some? You're going to look at me. She goes straight into fight. So you've got that sort of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So all of those can come into drama. So I've got, I was just looking at, was it Angie's that I saw somewhere, and Sarah's, I ramble and use apologetic language. That Ange, when it's too apologetic, even if it wasn't me, what happens just before you get apologetic like that?
I don't know. I just always feels, you know, it feels like a fault of mine, but I just feel like somewhere I've done something wrong. I kind of self-sabotage. And on the opposite end, not that this is the question, but I actually prop up everybody else. It's really weird. I wish I didn't have that. But yes, I feel like somewhere in there, you know, nobody else is fessing up to something. It's like, fine, okay, I did this, let's move on, which is not great, by the way. I don't love that I have that.
So and again, if everyone, if you just listen to this, because part of what learning clean language does is it gives you a very, very structural attention. You start to listen to understand how the structure of this works. So, oh, okay, well, it's probably a fault of mine. I'll apologize. No one else is doing it. Let's move on. Because when you go into drama, it's for something. You don't go into drama for nothing. And some of these patterns we learn when we're very young. Some of them you learn in a specific workplace. Some of them are family specific. I'm just looking at David's stubborn. So David, when you get stubborn, what kind of stubborn? I didn't warn you actually that if you write something down, I might ask you about it.
Sorry about that. I'm multitasking here. No, when I get stubborn, it's just I guess defensive is another way to say it. I just, you know, I defend my position over and over again. And I just try to find every way possible to defend my position and make them understand.
So when you get stubborn, David, whereabouts is your stubborn? Where's your sense of stubborn?
Not sure I understand.
Like, where's your sense of being stubborn? And everyone else, when I ask one person a question, you can all answer the same question, but your own stuff, because it's also the silent. There's loads of ways of being silent. You know, you can be silent, like you can be quite aggressively silent. You don't deserve my opinion anymore. You can get stubborn. Is it in your head? Is it in your body?
Oh,
whereabouts?
Well, it's definitely, it consumes me, you know, maybe not to my toes, but definitely head and torso. And I will sit on it until I'm really feeling challenged. I'll kind of go a quiet mode for a while, and then when they start pressing, and I feel it's kind of personal, then I'll get really stubborn and defensive. But yeah, it's head, body.
Not down to his toes.
Not
so
quite.
you know, there's still some hope there, but it's definitely head and torso. And I'll sit on it. So the other thing that I noticed early on with the children, but then also as I worked with adults, is they can often be quite visceral, our drama responses. They have chemicals, they set chemicals off in our bodies. So if I just take you for a moment with these different, you know, the Marcia's, I like to smooth it all over, and I often make it worse. So Marcia, you're trying to smooth it over in order that just before we find out about the making it worse, when you try to smooth it all over, what are you smoothing it all over for?
I would say it's like my gut reaction to any drama is, oh my gosh, jump in and make this better. So sometimes trying to do that and make it better, I'm really discounting things that people are saying to me, or you know, trying to smooth things over is often, I think, also being dismissive or I don't know, steamrolling ahead, right?
So smooth things over is often a slight rescuing position. But then what if I was working with Marcia, I'd be thinking, okay, is it because she doesn't think that they're able to, so she has to jump in? Or is it that she can't manage the conflict, is concerned about it, and is actually rescuing herself? It's like, I'm not okay, so I have to, this is too much for me, so I have to smooth it over. Or, oh, you guys can't cope with this, I'm going to smooth it over. Like, do you have a sense of where you're smoothing from?
I think I have definitely been from both of those places, for sure.
I can rescue from both ends.
Absolutely, but yes.
But what Marcia is saying there is that it's a lovely little thing of it, is that when you rescue, or whenever you're in drama, what it stops you from being is in contact with what's actually happening. So drama, because it tends to have a fight, flight, freeze motif, it can be a disconnect to what's actually happening, and then it stops you being able to transcend it, to work through it, to use it. So let me, just before we go any further, there's the drama that you get into. I'm sure that you've all had experience of being around drama. What are some costs to it? What's the cost to you personally, or the cost to a team? Can I just get you, and you can either raise your hand, which will put you up to the front for me to see, or you can just put it in the chat. But what are some costs of drama?
So I think some cost of drama for a team would be that you're really taking away their ability to self-organize in terms of even working through the drama. If you're just making everything okay, you know, are you really getting to the root of helping that team to learn how to navigate conflict on their own as a team?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you might, and that's, so that would align with what Marcia is saying, that she feels that sometimes she's dismissing or taking away. Yep. Travis, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, team morale and lack of engagement. Drama enters the space, you just kind of disengage, and that makes you question, am I in the right spot?
Yep, I've just come out of a team where I've been doing the very initial scoping, and one of them was saying, because I imagine, and she had the self-awareness to do it, she said, because I imagine that when I leave the room, they're talking, they're down talking about me. Then when I come into the next meeting, she said, I don't actually have evidence, I'm imagining it. But when I come into the next meeting, I don't share what I really think, because I've already assumed that they're going to think badly of it. So it's over time, she's not sharing her valuable insights because she's in drama. So yeah, lack of focus, problems aren't resolved, lack of team cohesion. So if there's less collaboration, yeah, if you do go fully into drama, you can lose your job. But some of us go into drama because we believe that if we tackled it, we'd lose our job. And, little safety warning, that's what was happening to my teenagers. They were calling things out. They were saying what was going on. I have one of my own children has absolutely no, partly because of the rules that we have as a family, when my youngest goes to school and a teacher, he gave me a very specific example. He said he was in a class and the teacher said, hey, you, what's your plan after school? What do you think that you want to do? And the kid went, I don't know. And he went to another kid and he said, what about you? And this kid answered, and he turned to the first one and he said, see, that wasn't so hard. And my youngest, because he's very sensitive, he said, why are you shaming him because he couldn't do something that he didn't agree that he was going to do? But of course, that's very sensible response. It's a very good call out. It's a reasonable question. However, that wasn't the agreed culture there. And so he was sent out of the room. And you're like, oh, okay. It's, sometimes calling out drama, especially if you do it. I did talk to my son about it. So it was like, well, you also did it from a shaming perspective. I said, you then called the teacher out in a shaming perspective. I said, Drama begets drama. It builds. Suruchi, you've got your,
Yes, it is Ruchi. Yes. So what I observed is sometimes team members or team overall, if consistently gives importance to drama rather than what we can do better for everyone together towards specific cohesive goal, they keep giving importance to all those things. And of course, those are also important. Collaboration is important, engagement is important, team morale is important. But why are we here for? Are are we hired here just for talking with each other and chit-chatting and being happy? So I think because of all this drama and having this drama for longer time pulls us down to enhance productivity. And at the end of the day, we are all here for that, right? So that's the biggest impact.
Yeah. So if that's what the costs are, and I'm seeing Johan's, when drama enters, my curiosity walks out. Yeah. So one of the costs is it's very difficult to be in drama and to be curious. And one of the drama positions that I think is hardest to get out of is that slightly patronizing drama. It's like not high drama you can detect, but it's low drama that I think is particularly costly, because you just stop. We just agree. They're just like that. There's no point. Once you get into that, it's very difficult to stay present. So if this is what we're up to, how come we do it so much? What are the benefits of drama? Because we love it. You know, all of us have got that friend that we really like to tell something to, because they go, oh yes, yeah, that's so true. On a personal note, when my sister was about 14 and I was quite estranged from my father, she said, you know, Caitlin, she said, it's all very well that you put all these boundaries in place to manage Dad. She said, but you know, you've left me here. And actually, it's not okay with me that you just absent yourself from the family and leave me to deal with the drama. She said, I don't want this. I want to teach Dad not to be like this. How do we do that? We weren't tackling the problem. I was just saying, you're not okay, I'm going to avoid you. And so we had to really look at what the benefits of drama was. So as Janet says, well, it's part of the human experience. It is. So how come? What is the benefit to us of getting into drama? What does it do for us?
I'm not sure if I could address benefits, but I could just add to, it's part of the human experience. We all are viewing and experiencing from our own lens, our own perceived or unperceived biases. Mm-hmm. So we come to the table, just as in the example you gave. It was almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. She felt like they were, you know, having these sidebar conversations and excluding her. And so that dictated her behavior, which probably wasn't in her best interest, right? It could be for some, not for me, I don't subscribe to this, but for some, I've seen where it could be semi-cathartic, right? That's just from whatever history or background they have, that's just the way they be, right? And in order for them to get from point A to point Z, they have to work through this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think? I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
Well, I do think it's part of the human experience. I think it's very comfortable. I think that it's bonding, you know, because what I did in response to my sister is we became an alliance to become more agile as a family. And we slowly and surely, we called out drama. I taught my dad, my stepmom, my sister, my brother, and we taught each other the language. And when we noticed that somebody was in a bit of drama, we would say, can I just check, what would you like to have happen right now? What's important to you right now? We'd get curious about it. And slowly but surely, we really rebuilt our relationship. I'd say to my dad, you know, when you put me down like that, what is it you actually want from me? What are you saying? When I come in and you say, oh, here's Caitlin, you know, hide the food. She's got such a big appetite. What is it you want to do? He said, well, it's just a joke. I said, okay. And when it's a joke, what is it you want from it? He'd be like, well, I do think you should be a bit leaner. My father's very, very lean, very sporty. I'm like, okay. So you wouldn't want me to be healthy? I said, yeah. You want me to be leaner? Yep. Okay, this isn't working. I said, what's actually happening is I avoid you. I don't eat with you. Is that what you want to happen? So we started to rebuild our relationship. But you know who wasn't happy about that? Was my mother. Because all of our lives, as I built a really positive relationship with my father, all of our lives, we all agree he's horrible. That's the agreement. That's the bond. And when we started to build a relationship, it really upset her because she felt betrayed by this shift in our dynamics. So that's the sort of, what it's bonding. It gives us tribalism. So if I just come back into, so when you're in drama, the way that we use clean language with this is clean language in and of itself is a non-judgmental, it forces you, it constrains you from putting your judgment out. So if I hear, I don't know, I'm not looking back at some of your earlier answers. So if I see that Frank is running around it's like a chicken without a head running around in circles, I can, if I say to him, so when you're a chicken without a head, what happens just before that chicken has no head? Then I can accept and extend and get interested in the situation. Frank gets a chance to actually think about it. And because I'm going to stay clean, I cannot patronize him about it. With my dad, when he would make one of his jokes, and my sister Lucy would stop and she'd say, Dad, what's happening right now? And he'd say, well, actually, I'm annoyed because I want to go and you're all here. Say, okay. So if this is a pattern, what would you like to have happen? What needs to happen? What's the smallest change that Lucy and I could make so that you're not frustrated, but we don't have to do this passive aggressive thing, or in fact, it was often quite an aggressive thing. So clean questions, what happens just before? What happens next? Where does that come from? That's a bit like what? And let me be really clear. You're all getting it. It's like, I don't need to sell this to you. It was that we got to resolve real problems. So yes, my dad might be doing a lot of drama stuff, but actually there were things he wanted that he then never got because the way he approached the problem made us so defensive, we wouldn't engage with him. But once we resolved it, actually there was some stuff that my sister and I did consistently that really wound him up, and we could just adjust that. So if I just stop you a minute and we just leave drama for a second, now go to Agile. And those of you who aren't Agilists, you could use when you're working at your best. But if I pause you for a minute and say, when your mindset is at its most agile, then you're like what? So when your mindset is at its most agile, it's like what? So Janet Marie is in the flow. Who's different to that? I'm liking Aaron. So when you're, Switambara is inspect and adapt. And David's like water. So, and then you can just say it's exactly the same process can be used for what you'd like to have happen as for when you're in drama. So when you're in water, what kind of water, David? What kind of water are you? Or we could ask Rod.
Sorry, I have to switch back and forth between my computers to respond.
Oh, well, I know you're multitasking. I want to
Yes.
see how far we can get you to go. So what kind of water are you?
Water, muddy, thick water.
Mm-hmm. And
Not agile at all.
and when you are agile, what kind of water is it then?
Wow. It just flows, open to different paths. And looking at it, it hits walls once in a while, hits dams or what have you, bounces off, try a different way, sort of thing.
If you just listen to that as a contrast. So do you remember what David was like when he's in drama? So he's stubborn.
Yeah.
I sit on it. So often there's a physiological difference between us when we're in our most agile. So if I look at Jonathan is buzzing with sparking energy. So Jonathan, when you're buzzing, whereabouts are you buzzing?
It's three-dimensional. It's all around. It's inside me and outside me. And I'm just observing and touching it.
So I'm just observing and touching. It's inside and outside. It's three-dimensional. And conversely, when you're in drama, Jonathan, then you're like what?
Yeah, I didn't write anything for that, but it's the opposite of that. It becomes very, very small. It becomes kind of tied up and bound and wrapped and tight and restricted.
So bound, wrapped, tight, restricted, and very small. And when he's at his most agile, he's buzzing, it's 3D, sparking energy. Yeah, look at Jamie's, you're innovative. When your mind is at its most agile, you're innovative. What kind of innovative?
I think when we're most agile, we have the breathing space to be more innovative versus just responding and being so output focused. When we're most agile, we're looking at more the outcome versus just outputs, and therefore we have a deeper focus, and that really frees up frees up space in our minds to be more innovative because we're not just reacting, right?
And so as I'm listening to Jamie, again, with a clean attention, what I listen to is what's the motif of the difference between agile and drama for this? And so far with Jamie, I've got space. So there's breathing and it frees up space. I've got breathing space to be more innovative. We can hear with Jonathan, it's tight and wrapped, or it's 3D and it's sparking and it's buzzing inside and outside of me. We've got the stubborn, I sit on it, or we've got water. It can hit a dam, it can bounce off it, it can find another way. So the reason I think that drama is so important to the agile world is it's our signal that something's going on that we can just do something about. What I love about clean language is you only need a very simple set of tools to explore both. Let me just get a couple more of your agile things. So is that Jan? I don't know if you're a Jan or a Jan. Able to quickly adapt. So when you're able to quickly adapt, what kind of adapt? I can't see where Jan is. Jan or Jan? Well, I've got Terry's. I imagine a river. It's headed in a direction. It's moving where it needs to go. So all of these, if I get you to all, what are some of the differences you're seeing or our end? I'm like the steering wheel of a ship. I'm feeling the flow of the sea and the wind, and I'm adapting the wheel as needed. So what are any things that you're finding in common with the agile mindset? What are people noticing? Let's get some observations. You might have to do what I'm doing and scroll through some of there. of the
What
chat.
are
So
my learnings here? What can I learn from this? What am I learning? And how am I going to use these learnings so that I do not get into this drama again?
yeah. So when you're in more agile, it's what am I learning? What can I use from this so I don't get into it again? Karen's you've got to be fluid to be agile. Edward's noticing a difference between mental states, are relaxed or agitated. Anything else you're noticing between your agile, the differences between your agile and then your, if you look at Rod Willis's, so when he's at his most agile, I'm soaring high with clear vision. It's about, oh, that's interesting, Rod. So you're soaring high with clear vision. And when you're in drama, you're a bit more like what? In a hole. Okay, so there we've got a height motif. You've got an up-down motif for this difference. So you've got stillness moving, in, out, wide, small, high, low. Anyone else got noticing any differences between when they're in drama and when they're agile? I like that one. In a hole. You see, again, he says he's in a hole. I want to know, what kind of hole is that hole that you're in? And of course, as a team member, let's say Rod and I need to do something together, we create what we call a rough guide to. So what's a rough guide to Rod when he's in a hole? What kind of hole is it? What happens just before he gets in that hole? And then I can go, when you're in a hole, what would I see or hear? And when you're in a hole, what could I do to support you? What's the best thing I could do? What's the worst thing I could do? They're very simple questions for Rod and I to agilely work out what to do. When I'm in drama, I'm very cold and I'm very distant. So I have a flea. It's a freeze flea, but it's very threatening. So you can say, okay, how would I know? What would I see and hear you doing, Caitlin? What could I do to support you? What's the worst thing I could do? What's the best thing I could do? And the team that I started working with this morning, it doesn't take very long. It's like, Yagma, I feel like there's a ball in my stomach that affects my breathing. So yeah, foggy versus clear for Tambara. With or without agency for Frank. So that's the chicken with a head, without a head. I didn't see what, Frank, what do you like when you're at your best then? If in drama you're a chicken without a head running in circles, what do you like at your best? I don't know if he's on or not. So this is the way that we use this in the Agile world is, as I said, the rough guide to. It's our simplest method. The thing about it is we start judoka. What's that, Frank?
The sport judo, where you react to what's happening and redirect the energy of the other person.
Aha. So it's a sport. Notice what's happening. Some people talk about the OODA loop. You know, you observe, you orientate yourself, you decide, and then you act. That to be in that, and yeah, so what, Aikido, yeah. So what I'm looking for when I'm coaching a team is not to hide drama, but to welcome it into the room. I think the most important thing about using the drama model is, as I said, is that you don't use it to shame. You use it to be deeply curious. It's the most effective thing that you can do, is to switch from, ooh, ouch, that's drama, avoid, to going, what's happening? What would we like to, what's happening? Where's that coming from? What would we like to have happen? What's the smallest thing we can do? But that is easier if you have a common language. And so my recommendation to you is that you develop both the in drama and the agile mindset, and then the simplest questions. It's like what, that's like what happens just before, what happens next, what happens just before, what happens next. And then the social level questions. What's the thing I could do that would help? What's the thing that I could do that would make it worse? What's the thing And if you're in an agile mindset, what could I do to help? What's the thing I could do that would drop you out of it? So that's stop. We've got a minute and some of you have to go. Any questions that you've got just before we close? You can shout out if you like. Okay. Well, there are some, you don't need any more than this to go play with it. What I recommend, when David Grove was teaching clean language, he did it like a shareware. He said, take it out, go play with it, go invent something new with it. So any ideas that you've got for where you'd like to practice it, as Jamie says, there's ways that they can get in touch afterwards, Jamie, if they want to share ideas about how they can apply what we've played with tonight. Sure.
Yes, we can. I think using our community at Discord would be a great place. LinkedIn,
yeah, even little tiny bits, sharing them on LinkedIn, I think it's a great way to to inspire capability.
Agreed.
Aaron is saying that David knew of NLP, but his background, Aaron, was something different. If you look at his history, if you look at the history of and you look at some of the structures within the Maori culture, the clean language, looking for the source of things, pulling things back to where they make sense, was part of his system anyway. And yes, I think like NLP, like lots of different people, they were looking at how to model the structure of subjective experience, his being particularly from a non-expert position. So built into his work was an absolute fundamental trust in the client, or for me, because I worked with groups, in the group to self-organize the best solutions. I'm looking at some questions, but anyway, thank you all for hanging out. I'm happy to, I won't drop straight off, but if anyone's got any particular questions, you can put them in there. You can also link in with us, and we're happy to take questions on LinkedIn or even Facebook if anyone still uses Facebook.
Caitlin, thank you so much for being willing to come and share your time and your knowledge with us. This was brilliant, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I have many things that I can walk away with and try right away. So I can even apply to a professional coaching stance as well. I think there's some great things here, even in that kind of collaboration. So let's see. I will post the link to the YouTube. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll get notified there. Otherwise, since you registered for this event, you'll get an email with the link to the recording, and I usually post a link on LinkedIn as well.
Lovely. I'm sorry I won't see you at our end. You're not able to come to the Netherlands event. Yeah, there's a lovely clean event happening in the Netherlands in September.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so close, so close. We'll have to just look at you online.
Where in the Netherlands?
Check in with me on LinkedIn, Jagma, and I'll if you check in with me on LinkedIn, I'll post something about it, and then you'll see where it is.
Okay. Well, everyone, have a fabulous end to your evening, your afternoon. Oh, there's some links there if somebody wants to catch those.
Yeah, that's the Art of Craft that Frank's just put down as well. Thanks, Arend. Thanks, nice. Frank.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks, Caitlin.
You're welcome, Jamie. Have a lovely rest of your day.
You as well. Chat soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.